Great chiropractors and physical therapists are under constant pressure of declining insurance reimbursements and long hours. But did you know there's a way to double your profit without working more? By building a gym onto your practice, you can earn more income, stabilize your business, and be a hero to your family, patients, and team. It's a big undertaking with a huge reward. Dr. Josh Satterley has done it, changed his life, and now wants to help you do the same. Welcome to Clinic Gym Radio.
Hey, welcome to Clinic Gym Radio, where we believe that trading time for money is for suckers. Insurance companies are the enemy, and the best way to maximize your license is by adding a gym to your clinic. I am excited today because I have the pleasure, the honor really, of talking with Dr. Chad Woolner. How are you, Chad?
I'm doing awesome, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing great. And where are you calling in from?
Meridian, Idaho, which is right next to Boise. So pretty much Boise, Idaho.
Fantastic. And warm, cold? You guys got the winter weather?
You know what? It's sunny outside, but it's a little bit chilly. It's not too bad.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Chad Woolner is he's really the brains behind the ChiroFunnel Secrets and the ChiroFunnel Secrets podcast. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. ChiroFunnel podcast and our flagship program, ChiroFunnel Secrets. Yeah.
And what is the core idea? What is the problem that you solve with your product there?
Yeah. So for us, ChiroFunnel Secrets is basically about teaching a very simple, straightforward way to chiropractors on how to implement marketing funnels into their practice. And my specific philosophy regarding funnels is I design funnels that will help to attract high quality new patients. You know, a lot of docs have probably heard funnels are the new kind of buzzword around there. People talk about Facebook ads and funnels and things like that. And you'll probably even see a lot of different marketers out there, various gurus and many of them self-proclaimed gurus telling you about how they can bring you in, hundreds and hundreds of different leads and all this stuff. And to be truthful, getting leads through the door, getting leads to call or whatever isn't the difficult part. The difficult part is, getting good quality new patients in the door. And so that's kind of to answer the question of what we solve. We solve that issue. We solve that problem, if you will, by helping chiropractors to build specific types of funnels that will help to engage and qualify prospects such that you're not speaking to everybody, but ultimately you're refining out of this random audience who the right prospects are, and then from the right prospects, who are going to be the ones that are going to ideally be the best fit for the practice, the best fit for you, that are going to eliminate a lot of your headaches and frustrations and really ultimately allow you the freedom and the ability to serve your patients to the highest level possible, so that you're not expending a lot of your energy on selling people that don't really want to be sold. There was an article some time ago by Gary Vaynerchuk. I felt vindicated when he wrote it because it was like my sentiments exactly. He said I don't know if it was the number one, but one of the greatest wastes of an entrepreneur's time is in trying to sell people that don't want to be sold, trying to sell people that aren't qualified, and that's the thing is that you'll find, at least this has been my experience, when you find the right audience and the right message for that audience and you provide them with a legitimate solution to a legitimate problem, selling is really easy. You don't have to deal with a whole lot of technique, so to speak, even though technique as far as persuasion and all that stuff is all fantastic to have a foundation. But the conversation becomes very organic and authentic when you have those other pieces in place, so to speak, because now you're getting real with people. You're really going to talk at their level on you're going to be able to help solve their problems. They have legitimate problems versus this kind of blanket statement of trying to shove the round peg in the square hole or square peg in a round hole. I don't know which one it is.
I think it's square peg, round hole, but
okay.
So an easy way to say what do you do, Chad, is you help chiropractors make more money by treating the people they actually want to treat. Is that about right?
Yeah, absolutely. And funnels just so happens to be the tool or the vehicle that we teach them on how to implement in that process.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great because the part I love about it is, some people might be intimidated by this idea of marketing or online marketing or funnels, but let's just step back real quick. 100% of all chiropractors have a funnel. They may not know what it is and they may not have it clearly defined, but they have a quote unquote sales funnel, right?
Right, exactly.
And so what you're doing is, hey, let's just clearly define this thing. Let's make sure we understand how it starts, how it stops, how somebody actually gets in the door. And then let's just throw some jet fuel in this sucker to crank it up if we need to. if we need to.
No, that's
right?
exactly right. And that's the thing is, it's funny you say that because whether a chiropractor wants to admit it or even realizes it or not, like you said, everyone has a funnel. It might be that your funnel sucks and you don't realize it, you know. But basically, without getting into details, really, a funnel is nothing more nor less than a process. It's really a process. The whole idea of an online funnel is taking that process and putting it online, you know, which you can obviously through internet, you can leverage a lot of your, it's just better leverage for you as far as being able to get more done with your funnels and whatnot. But like you said, exactly, everyone has a funnel. So don't get caught up or confused in the semantics of things as far as what a funnel is. A funnel is basically what I just said there as far as taking a random audience. It's a process by which you take that random audience, qualify them. The example I use of a perfect idea of an offline funnel that chiropractors would be very familiar with is like a spinal screening. That's a funnel, right? You talk to this random audience. Hey, how many of you have questions about your spine? Maybe you're dealing with these symptoms or whatever. Okay, so now we're kind of beginning the process of initially initiating a conversation or perhaps just that initial qualification, and then get them to fill out their information. Then you do the whole song and dance, you know, dog and pony show, whatever it is you're doing. And I'm not knocking spinal screenings if you do them the right way. I think Dr. Tabor Smith has a great program for docs. That's like the epitome, I think, of like what a perfect spinal screening should be. He's got great stuff, but it's a funnel. That's all it is. It's you know, and so docs are like, oh, okay, that's, you know, so don't be confused or get distracted by the buzzwords or the terms. Right.
And the simple idea of why it's called a funnel is it reduces in size at every step. So in your case, the spinal screenings, we go to a shopping mall, 10,000 people walk through there in a day. Out of that 10,000, 1,000 come to talk to us at our booth. Out of that 1,000, we get 100 names, phone numbers, whatever we're going to follow up with. Come the next week, our staff calls all 100, and out of that, we get 20 of them to come into or agree to come into the office. Out of that 20, we get 10 of them to actually show up, and out of that 10, we sign up 5 for care, right?
Exactly.
So it's just reduce.
Yeah.
But at some point, somebody said, hey, I don't want it, or that's not for me, or that's not for me right now. Like that's a very important part that a lot of people overlook is people go through funnels and then they might go through the next few weeks realizing like, oh my God, I do need what Chad was talking about. I do need what Joe was talking about. Like I do have this problem. I didn't realize how bad it was, which is great that you develop that pain when they're not even thinking about you, right? Right, exactly. Yeah. So let's do a little backstory because everybody is always interested in that. How did you get started by doing online funnels?
So long story short or short story long, I never can tell when I get started. Once I get started, it's hard to stop me. But I graduated from chiropractic college, went to Western States Chiropractic College, or now now it's known as University of Western States out in Portland.
After you graduated, you made that place cool, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, it's no mystery to chiropractors that we don't get taught how to run a business at all, you know. And so I graduated with a lot of ambition and a tremendous amount more ignorance, right? And just didn't know what I was doing, but I was very optimistic. I worked as an associate for a couple chiropractors for almost a year. And it was a really good experience, but they didn't give me a whole lot of training either. Their practice was a good practice, but it wasn't like one of these like hardcore systems oriented type practices. And so I really didn't gain a whole lot.
You're a good person when good people show up. Good people walk in the door and we'll live a good life kind of idea.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was a good practice. It was a good experience. But after about a year or so, I realized, you know what, I'm gonna look at some different opportunities. And I looked around and didn't really find a lot of opportunities. And so I got the bright idea after a chiropractor suggested, hey, why don't you start your own practice? And I was like, well, hey, let's do that. You know, I signed on with a big box consulting group who had me sign this horrendously huge contract because they promised me that all my wildest dreams would come true if I signed on with them. They teach me everything I needed to know. I did that, and
let me guess how the story ends. Can I guess?
yeah, exactly.
And you're still with them. You're still with them today because you're so happy with them, and they did such amazing things for you.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So yeah, it wasn't at all what it was promised or whatever, and just went through. And this is kind of the long story short. Is I went through tremendous amount of struggle for years, and it wasn't by any means a quick process. It was a very slow and painful grind. And
did you think about quitting? Did you think about leaving the profession?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, I
think a lot of people are scared to admit that, but like it gets scary there I can think of a couple points in my career too, where it was like, is this really what I want to be doing?
Oh, absolutely. And I will gladly admit that. And especially I'll admit that because I know that if I'm honest with other docs, I know it will resonate with them, because I guarantee you I'm not alone. I know there are other docs who have either been there or maybe are right there right now. And I want them to know loud and clear, like, when you see our profession is notorious for, golly, I hesitate to say this because I don't want to, it's a really horrible way of saying it, but I just have to say it. So maybe you can.
That's all right, man. You're too nice of a guy to say it that rude. So go ahead.
It's going to be pretty rude. Our profession is notorious for dick measuring, right? Like we just constantly have to shove numbers in everyone's faces. And I think what that does is that has a lot of docs setting up these either false expectations, or it creates a tremendous amount of frustration when your clinic or your vision doesn't quite match up to what the successful chiropractic ideal is, or whatever, and you have this kind of forced upon you model of how the world should look and whatnot. So, and yet I know that there are a tremendous amount of docs who struggle unnecessarily and unfortunately. And so I've been there before. I want docs to know, trust me, as bad as you're having it, I was there too. I was, my wife and I had probably a good 2, maybe even 3 year span where the running joke for us was, it was like every week for that period of time, it was like we'd have this little check-in session, one with another, where it's, okay, is this the week we declare bankruptcy? No, okay, not yet. Okay, next week, we'll check in next week. And we had like this bankruptcy attorney, like his phone number was like on speed dial for me, because at any point in time, we just knew it was going to be kind of inevitable. And thankfully, unfortunately, it didn't go that route. But we were, perhaps the lowest point for me was that we were at a point where we were going to just up and move. We were going to move down to Texas. We looked into it. I was going to sell my practice and see, I was just hoping that when I sold it, that I wouldn't owe too much money. I knew there was no way I was going to break even, so
sell it to the guy at the U-Haul in exchange for the rental of a truck, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so anyways, that was, what's that?
The good news, the good news is that developed a lot of pain in you, right? And if there's one thing that can build a new business, it's pain.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what it did. It very much helped me. Number one, pain, but number two, I've often said that oftentimes we can find our greatest sense of purpose through our greatest pains. And I believe that. I feel like and that's, I think, what you find a lot of times with chiropractors who have these amazing stories of what got them into chiropractic was these painful stories of how they turned things around through incredible chiropractic care. And so I'm sure a lot of docs can resonate with that because they've had those experiences. But for me, that's when I found a tremendous sense of purpose. At the time, I didn't quite realize it, but now I do, looking back. I really feel a huge sense of purpose in helping other chiropractors, because I know what that's like, and I don't ever want any other chiropractor to feel that way, to feel like you're out of options, or to feel like you getting into this profession was a mistake. That's too sad. That's frustrating.
It's like skydiving. You want them to feel a little bit of what the free fall's like, and maybe if you can have that ripcord just not work the first time, and get a massive amount of clarity there, and then it works the second,
Right.
Because I think I would just guess that the clients that you have that have done your program top to bottom, piece by piece, dotted the I's, crossed the T's, are the ones that feel that pain. The guy that came out of school early and was like, oh yeah, I'm using mom and dad's money to build this, probably hasn't completed your program nearly to the intensity of somebody that's seen the dark side, right?
You hit it nail on the head. The case study, if that's what you want to call it, the very first chiropractor that I ever helped, he and I are very close friends to this day. He's actually just down the road from me. His name is Dr. Matt Ogle, just an incredible chiropractor. His practice is crushing it today. And that's because he was acutely aware of that pain. He was right there. He was just as bad off, if not worse than I was. And And
you were inviting him over to buy him dinner.
Right. Exactly.
Like, hey, let us buy you ramen. No, seriously. It's on us today.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so anyways, but yeah, you're exactly right. So kind of rewind, but where we were at, it was right around this time that, my friend Russell Brunson, he's the founder of ClickFunnels software. He told me he had been kind of seeing the struggle, and he'd been trying to help however he could. But at the end of the day, he's got his business running, I've got mine.
Sure.
It wasn't like he was going to come in and do it for me. He couldn't. But at the time, he said, hey, I've got this new software we're getting ready to launch. It's called ClickFunnels. It's going to help you build funnels, and I want to see if you can use it. Maybe it'll help you in your practice. And so I was like, okay. And so I basically at that time was throwing around some different ideas, and I started playing around with the software.
Now, how many years ago is this, just to kind of give us a perspective?
This is about 3 years ago. So yeah, it wasn't that long ago, man. It was, I mean, and at that time, I mean, the practice, we were doing okay, but we were just kind of limping along. It was just kind of like, yeah, we're here, nothing really special. And right when we got that software, I kind of dialed in this idea for a funnel. It was a lunch workshop funnel. And I came up with this idea. I messaged Russell and I said, hey dude, this is what I'm thinking. And I think this is how I'm going to use the software. And he's like, I think that'll work, man. I think that'll work really well. And so I launched it, and that was an overnight success. I mean, the minute we did it, we smashed it out of the park. And all I remember was the minute I found out that it was converting and that it was working. I'm the type of person that, like, for better or for worse, if 5 is good, then like 10 or 100, it must be even better, And so I was like, I pushed forward with like reckless abandon with it. I was doing lunch workshops every day. I was just going out and just crushing it with them from this.
So can we hit pause real quick? So lunch workshop was basically, you put out an online funnel, if you will, that did what? How did you go from that to lunch workshop?
Yeah. So we basically came up with a process of, so most, let me kind of back up. I've got a million thoughts here. So prior to this, I had already known about doing lunch and learns, right? So many consultants tell you, go out and do lunch and learns. The problem that most consultants have that I found was
they've never gone out and tried to get the intro into a lunch and learn. That's their problem.
Yes, yeah. That's the problem right there. But then the other problem too that I always realized, that was kind of a symptom of an underlying root problem. The root problem was that every lunch workshop that I had ever seen was nothing more or less than what I call a thinly veiled sales pitch. It was basically like, okay, here's the lunch workshop. It's called 101 Reasons Why Everyone Needs a Chiropractor. What value are you really providing those people unless they actually come in and see you? Those that, for whatever reason, if they couldn't come in and see you, they didn't want to come in and see you, they got really no value out of that, nothing tangible that they could walk away with.
Right.
So I said, well, how do we remedy this problem then? What if we were to, and I started asking these questions of, okay, so what if we could actually provide like real tangible value to everyone regardless? If we went forward kind of this law of reciprocity from Robert Cialdini's book Influence, if you just go forward, just give people real value without any expectation, just I'm going to go in and give value. And I believe that if we do that correctly, it'll all work out in the end. That was kind of our approach. And
here's how you know that method works. For everybody listening, go today to a store and buy flowers and take them home and say, here, just because, right? You're bringing value to the situation. I just want to thank you for all that you've done. Here's some flowers. And then a week later, buy the same flowers from the same store, go home, hand them to your spouse and say, I'm doing this so that we can sleep together tonight.
Right.
Now you already have somebody that loves you, trusts you, and you know that the flowers work. Just see the difference there. And then imagine how your customer feels when they don't know you, trust you, and aren't freaking married to you, right?
Right. Seth Godin wrote a really good article, if you want to read it, called Hacking Reciprocity. It's like a paragraph long. You could read it in like 30 seconds. But that's what you just said there is pretty much what Seth Godin said about reciprocity.
So I'm as smart as Seth Godin. That's what you're saying,
yes,
Chad?
that's exactly right.
Okay, hold on. Let me write this note down here. Certified today by Chad Woolner. All right, go on. So basically the whole idea that we kind of shifted our thinking and focus with that was we said, you know what, we're just going to go in and give value. So what we developed was today we now have it as what we call our 30-minute reboot workshop, where basically
people a morning routine that they can implement in their schedule to boost their energy, reduce stress, and eliminate pain. Basically, our whole pitch was, hey, we're going to come into your group. We're going to teach them immediate strategies that they can use that are going to help with the most common problems that they experience in the workforce: stress, fatigue, energy problems, and pain.
Sure.
Right? Those are the major. And so we developed a series of different strategies for approaching companies. One among those was the online approach. Basically an online funnel that basically introduced the idea that, hey, your group can sign up and we'll bring you a free lunch along with this workshop. We'll provide you guys with a ton of value, no strings attached. It's our way of just introducing ourselves. And then we developed a whole process for when we get there of how to go about introducing ourselves properly, and then also how to be able to put a pitch at the end that didn't come across high pressure, that didn't come across cheesy, that and that just ultimately converted really, really well. It was very predictable. Every time we did it, we would easily walk away with a minimum, worst case scenario, with 2 to 3 new patients, and those are paying new patients. They pay full price. We don't do any sort of free exams or discount exams or anything. They pay the full price, which made it even better for us because we knew that right out the gates that was going to dramatically increase or elevate the quality of those patients that came through the door. And that's literally how we transformed our practice, was with that single funnel. And that was just a sorry about that. My phone was
That's
starting.
probably Seth Godin calling you and saying, hey, I have another tip for you, Chad.
That's right.
Yeah.
So basically, that was ultimately what turned it around. And it was right around that time that I started questioning or asking, we had been doing this and it had transformed our practice. And I said, well, what if there are other ways we can use this software as well? And so then that led to kind of us creating and experimenting with a variety of other different funnels. And again, in the name of transparency, so docs understand, I have definitely had more strikes than I've had home runs, for sure. I've struck out numerous times, and I still do. That's part of the thing that with funnels. I'll specifically say with ClickFunnels, which is so powerful. The true power of ClickFunnels is in the speed of implementation, because what happens now is, instead of me taking weeks and weeks and months and hundreds and thousands of dollars and building this thing out to test it, only to find out it didn't work, that kind of sucks, right? Whereas with ClickFunnels, you can do it in an hour or so, be ready, launch it, see if it works. If it doesn't work, okay, not a whole lot lost there. Okay,
Yep.
And so
people forget that. People forget the value of momentum. And if if you went out and something just went incredibly well for you in the community, you got featured on the news or something, the ability to go in within 24 hours of that, build something where you can take the momentum and turn it into something else. So you were on the news because, in your case, the news stopped by the new temple being built in Boise, right?
Right.
And that's a big local event, and you happen to be on the news. Let's just say that happens. Well, what are you going to do with that? You can use that to bring value and say, if you have some recognizable name or something, ClickFunnels, essentially you could spend a couple hours and get a recognizable person to do something that drove them forward, right?
You bet. Yeah.
And you're going to mess up. It's guaranteed. Well, I'm sure that there are people listening to this podcast that have never screwed anything up in their life, but I've screwed up 1 or 2 things, and my wife's in the other room, so I'll kind of keep my voice low about 1 or 2. It's probably 1 or 2 million things. But anyways, it's that's part of business, though. You print business cards and you realize, oh man, they got the phone number wrong, or you make an offer and you're like, oh, that wasn't the right one, or we're too late, or we're too early. And that happens, but you just got to roll with it.
Well, and with that being said, the cool thing too about it is what it does is it dramatically reduces the error margin, in the sense that, it wasn't that long ago. It really wasn't. Even when I got out of practice, it was around that time where your mistakes that you made were far more detrimental back then. So for instance, we'll just give 2 examples. Let's say you wanted to do some advertising and you ran a postcard thing. You spend several $1,000s on all these postcards, you test them, and if they don't work, boy, that sucks, or a phone book. You run a phone book ad, you prepay for the year, several $1,000s or whatever, or you pay each month in a contract. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. That sucks, right? But again, with these funnels, you create them, you spend about an hour or so. Maybe you run some Facebook ads to it, drive some email traffic to it, maybe put some ads on Google or wherever. And ultimately you can limit it to where we're just going to budget out 10, maybe $20 a day or something in ads. And after a week or 2 weeks, you notice this thing isn't working. You can tweak it or you can scrap it altogether if necessary, but you have a lot more room to pivot and to shift. And the errors that you make are not nearly as detrimental. They're not deadly, whereas before,
and one of the, oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, no.
One of the funny things about anything on the internet, about the ads and whatnot, the ones you bet on, when you think you have the recipe right, it is amazing to me how little response that gets. And the one that you thought was, the last ad you built before you dozed off at your computer at 11 o'clock at night, that you're not even sure if it's a picture of anything you wanted, all of a sudden just gets incredible response from the right customer, It
is surprising. It's shocking, and at the end of the day, I don't know who was first quoted as saying this. I don't know if it was Dan Kennedy or whatever, but at the end of the day, what you come to find, the more you test and the more you tweak, you'll find your opinion doesn't really matter. we think that our opinions are so great, even mine, and I'm happy to tell docs, I can give you my opinion, but at the end of the day, it's the data and the results that really determine. And it's been the same for me. I'll have this is it. This is the funnel. It's going to crush it. And then it doesn't. And you're like, man, I could have sworn that was going to do it, and then other ones where you're like, let's just try it, and you throw it out there and then you find wow, that one worked. It is pretty surprising when you find. And so again, it's just all about testing and letting the market ultimately determine, because at the end of the day, it's the buyers whose opinions matter most.
We'll be right back with the rest of our interview with Dr. Chad Woolner right after this.
Are you a chiropractor or physical therapist working long hours, worrying about lower repayments and missing out on quality time with your family? You can double your income without working more hours by adding a gym to your practice. Clinic Gym Hybrid Solutions has a step-by-step guide that dramatically simplifies and speeds up the addition of a fitness center and its monthly recurring revenue. In just 6 months, you can be on your way to freedom. Visit clinicgymhybrid.com today for a free downloadable PDF and complimentary consultation to get you started. That's clinicgymhybrid.com.
Now, a couple things I want to talk about, because I know that you offer a webinar basically every week to chiropractors, right?
Typically, yeah, we're kind of in the transitional phases. That's going to be going away here in a little, at least this version. We're getting
a little scarcity there. Did you hear that, people?
That's
better
right.
Get on it. Dr. Chad
right.
Woolner's webinar is going away. But seriously, I want to bring up something that I think a lot of people kind of overlook when it comes to marketing. And one of the huge advantages of having a funnel that is on rinse, lather, repeat. You offer a webinar, and roughly how long does that webinar last when somebody logs in and watches the whole thing?
From start to finish, typically about an hour and a half, hour, 20 minutes, something like that.
And have you ever had anybody that was on that webinar more than once before they bought?
Oh, yeah, because we'll do replays too. So yeah, we get oftentimes docs who have watched it numerous times. Yeah, you bet.
I think a lot of people forget that, your customer needs to get to know you and trust you. And sometimes that's exactly the same message, exactly the same way, and exactly the same time, but they just need to hear it like times tables. They just need to know that, because you're not changing anything in your webinar, right? They just want to get to know you a little bit better and hear your jokes and your quips and all that. And yet the curriculum is exactly the same, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think somebody said it's like, walking up to a fruit tree. And sometimes we build this funnel and we think, well, every apple will be ripe right now. And it's like, well, no,
right.
About 20% of them are. And then you know what? Next week, when you walk back up to this, you host another webinar, another 20% will be ripe. And then, what's really cool, after a year, then it really starts producing fruit, because even the little apples now are ripe. But would you say that's true?
Absolutely. People, yeah, exactly. People want to get to know you on a personal level. And I would say that the biggest, if you want to call it a hack, it's not really a hack because it's genuine. One of the fastest ways or a shortcut, if you will, to creating a connection with people is through authenticity and vulnerability. Russell has said this, and I would wholeheartedly agree, and that's something I really try to do myself, is I try not to do a whole lot of chest puffing. Yes, I have a successful process for bringing in new patients. Yes, I'm awesome at ClickFunnels, and I could list off all of my wonderful accolades, and that's great. And I think that should be apparent. That's why you're here on the webinars, because I'm teaching you something you don't know. But I want docs to hear my failures. I want docs to hear that I still am trying to figure some things out, that I still have questions, that I'm not perfect, that I'm vulnerable, that you know what I mean? That and I think what that does is that creates a stronger bond and connection, because it's no different with, I don't know if you've heard this before with like chiropractors, something very practical that they can start, a habit that they can get into. Docs who get out of school are notorious for this, is people will be talking at like a social gathering or a party or something. I'll be talking about neck issues, and instinctively that new doc wants to show the world how great he is. And so I can fix that. I can fix neck problems. I can do this. And what that does is we think that somehow that's going to build credibility and trust, but it does the opposite. It repels people. And so my pat response now, when people ask me all the time, as a chiropractor, "Oh, you're a chiropractor, do you fix this, or can you help with this?" And I always say, I don't know. That's why we invite people in for an initial exam. One of my famous, quote unquote, it's not famous, but video scripts that I'll do is I'll talk to patients about, or a prospect in the video about, "Hey, are you someone who's struggling with neck pain or back pain or whatever, shoulder issues or whatever?" We get questions all the time asking us, "Can you help people with shoulder issues?" And our answer is always a resounding maybe. And we say maybe because we haven't met yet. That's why we invite you to come in for an initial evaluation. It's vulnerability that really, I think, is a shortcut to connection with people, is creating a greater sense of belief in you. It makes you more authentic, makes you more believable. It makes you more real to people. People, I think, are exhausted with the chest puffing, with the people are just they get that enough with their MDs. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. Well, I really I don't know if you've read the book Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. It's a fantastic book. I think every chiro should read it. Every business owner should read it. And he talks about that. And I love the analogy he uses. He says, don't try and be the hero to your patient. Try and be the guide and help them be the hero.
Right.
So you don't want to, you would never stand up on stage and somebody invites you to speak at a conference and stand up there and go, "I am, SFMA certified. I am ART certified, and I am FMS certified." And the crowd would be blinking and staring at you going, what is this guy talking about? Right. But so many people use that same method on their business card. They use that same method on their website. It's nobody cares. They don't need to know how cool you are. What they want to know is that you are cool enough to help them, that you can guide them through. And so I know, Chad, that you know that, because what amazed me is I looked at the testimonials of your chiropractic clinic, and none of those testimonials are, "It's so great here at Dr. Woolner's chiropractic clinic." Every testimonial that I saw was, "Check out how this person is living their life. And if you're interested in living your life to the fullest, well, we could guide you through that." Not we're the best and you're secondary. It's we played a guiding role. And people respond to that, right? And it's. I know it's super cliche. I swear we had this as a kid posted up on one of our walls or something in our house. But it's the. In fact, I totally remember my mom had a picture of Jesus on the wall, and it said below it, "People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care." And I know that's super cliche, but it's really profound, right? People don't want to hear you blab on about your credentials and how smart you are and how great you are. They just want to know first and foremost if you actually are going to listen to them and hear them and help them to feel validated, and then ultimately be willing to help them. And that's exactly what you're saying. Right. And so some of those folks that are watching your webinar for the 11th time are probably just appealing to their lizard brain of, does this person care? Can I trust him? It's not, they need to know anything else about your offer or what you're doing or how much time it'll take. It's just, I need to know at the double helix of my DNA that this guy is, truly cares about me. Right. And that's I go into this whenever I teach people about webinars, if they're ever going to do webinars for their practice. And this is just a little nugget for anybody and everybody, but
if you're going to get people, fundamentally, if you're going to get people to buy anything you're selling, a webinar or whatnot, there has to be two levels of belief that have to be met. That first one that you're talking about is believing in you, believing the individual that, yeah, I believe Dr. Woolner is legit. And if you get that far, you get them there, that's awesome. But that doesn't necessarily ensure that they're going to buy. So and again, what you're talking about there, that lizard brain, it's not just believing in me. The second layer or level, if you want to call it a belief, is belief in themselves. They have to believe that, that not only is Dr. Woolner legit, but that, and that I believe that what he's saying is true, but I also believe that I can do what he's saying I'll be able to do, right? So oftentimes the story we tell ourselves is, I believe Josh is great at exercise and helping people incorporate gyms into their practice. And I'm sure it'll work for these other dudes because they're special and they're awesome and they're talented, but it's not going to work for me because Josh is just amazing and he's so much far beyond where I'm at, And so you have to kind of meet those two levels of belief through what you're doing, and if you can help meet those two levels of belief, that's when people will buy. And fundamentally that belief isn't achieved through statistics or through numbers or through quote unquote proof. It's through emotion. And it's through that whole idea of them really truly feeling like you care enough to help them get it, to help them, achieve what it is they're looking to achieve. So those two levels of belief need to be met in order for people to be able to proceed forward with you with whatever you're wanting to do.
It goes back to earlier you talking about that vulnerability, right?
Yeah.
That you've stumbled, what the pain is like, what it's like, that you're hoping that a certain bill doesn't clear your bank today, that if you could just push it off 2 days, what it's like. They want to know that you went through that, right?
Right.
Yep. Well, that's fantastic, man. Last thing I want to talk about, because I know that your time is very valuable. We're always kind of guiding people to use their license as a way to bring in additional revenue, right? And that they can maximize their professional license. Now, a lot of people might do that through nutrition. We're encouraging them to start a gym on their clinic, but you went a totally different way, which is this offering an online product to the profession, right?
Right.
Yeah. So when did it occur to you that, was it driven by the monetary goal? Was it that you just wanted to serve your fellow chiropractor more? What encourage you to start that other component to your a secondary stream of revenue, if you will?
No, that's a great question, and I can answer that. I only
ask great questions, Chad. Learn that about me.
I can point to the day in which that shift happened. I can literally remember the day. I had created a webinar. It was for functional medicine. I had just finished the certification for functional medicine. The reason why I took the functional medicine course in the first place was that my wife had been dealing with some very significant health problems, chronic health problems, and wasn't getting any help. And I was extremely frustrated. And so I, one day out of the blue, happened to see an advertisement for Dr. Dan Kalish's functional medicine program, his mentorship, which is a great program. I would highly recommend it for any chiropractors who want to incorporate functional medicine into their practice. It's a very solid approach, and learned a ton from it. Went through a full year-long training with him and learned a ton. And I was like, okay, now I'm going to teach people functional medicine. What I didn't really truly realize or take the time to figure out at the time was I didn't realize that I was only doing it to help my wife. And not that I don't want to help anybody, not that I didn't want to help anyone else. I do, but it wasn't truly my passion, right? And so I started this program. I created this webinar. It was converting. It was doing awesome. But what I found was my heart wasn't truly in it. It wasn't in it to the point that I wanted to continue to see this thing through over and over and over. I couldn't see myself continuing this in perpetuity and indefinitely. And I was talking with Russell Brunson again. I always chat with him, and we'll get together, when he's not traveling the world and hanging out with Tony Robbins and everything else. We'll chat, and we were.
And you remind him, hey, I knew you before you were cool. Okay, so don't get big here.
That's exactly right. I remind him of that all the time. But we were chatting at his house, and I was telling him this kind of dilemma. And he asked me plain and simply, he said, who is the audience that you would most love to serve? And he said, and the question being is if you didn't get paid, if you weren't making any money doing it, who would you work with? And immediately I just knew it's chiropractors. I totally would. And there's a lot that I do that I don't get paid for, you know what I mean? Or at least directly get paid for, Sure. There was a full year where I was doing my, my podcast and just wasn't getting. In fact, Russell's counsel to me when I first started my podcast, he says, "Don't look at the stats or you'll be discouraged," because he said you'll find that no one's listening at the beginning. Yeah. And so I'm like, that's cool, man. And so I remember I was very consistent with my podcast, and still am pretty consistent with it. And at the beginning, there wasn't a whole lot of quote unquote money to that, but I just continued to push through it because I felt that there was such a strong sense of purpose and passion. And there's a saying that I always say all the time, that profit follows passion. It's not the other way around. We sometimes have erroneously believed, and we still get caught, and I do too, to some extent, still get caught up in this, where you somehow think that passion will follow profit, and it rarely does. We think that if I make all this money, all of a sudden magically a light switch will flip on. I'm going to all of a sudden be super passionate about this thing. It's not true. Profit follows passion. You find out what you really want to do at your core, like what your, there's a great book that I'm even reading again. I know the story and I've read it before, but it's Start With Why by Simon Sinek.
Yep.
You start with that why. What's your why? What are you passionate about? Mm-hmm. Who you want to serve? And so for me, to answer your question in a long roundabout way, that to me was a turning point for me when I realized, that chiropractors, yes, I make money when I sell my programs. In fact, I make a lot of money, and now I'm actually introducing a whole new in-person training. It's called the Chiro Funnel Map Weekend, where we bring out a small group of docs and we train them, teaching them how to implement funnels. It's a weekend training, and we just opened that up, and that's going to be fantastic. It's going to be exciting. I make money from that, but quite frankly, if I could wave a magic wand, I would totally do that for free if I had to, right? If it was like, if the reality of it, I didn't need to make money from that, I totally would. I could see myself doing that because I enjoy it and I love it. And I'm extremely passionate about helping chiropractors and teaching them, especially teaching them how to market the right way, because I'm very opinionated about marketing done right. I've got my opinions and all that stuff. But
yeah, I think it goes back in your story. Like when you were sitting there talking to your wife week to week about, hey, is this the week we declare bankruptcy? And just feeling what it's like to sit there and look into the eyes of your wife, who basically, I mean, when she took your name, dude, she bet on you, right? Like she put your label on her and said, hey, I'm with you. And when you're going through that pain and realizing, man, I mean, I remember when I was in chiropractic college, like what I thought I would be able to afford or do with my family and do all that. And then all of a sudden, when that reality is completely opposite of what's really going on in your life, and you're struggling to keep the doors open and you're staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m., like when you have this product that could save somebody from that, you are so motivated for them to have it. And people think, oh, Chad's selling that because he wants to make money off me. No, he wants to save you from the pain that he went through. And if there's anything, it'd be like what you want for your kids. I don't want you to suffer
absolutely
what it's like. I don't want you to feel that pain. And if this $2,000, $10,000, $100,000, like I don't want people. The reason I say add a gym is because you can give the care you want without doubling your hours. And I fell into the trap of, hey, more volume, more hours, more volume, more hours. And it's like, I'm coming home. Should have a potted plant sitting on the couch. Like I was about as useful as that, Right. And if I can save somebody from the freaking pain and what it's like when you're not a good father, not a good husband, not a good person to be around. And it's like, all you have to do is build these funnels. And it's like, that's it. And that's why people sell these things. That's why they're motivated to do it. When their heart is genuine, they're saving people from that reality that they've experienced.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in that regard, man, you are saving people from the worst reality that can happen. And I appreciate you doing that. Tell us a little bit more about how people can get in contact with you, where we should send them. Tell us about this weekend, whatever you want, man. I know you're doing the right thing for the profession. So take some time.
No, I appreciate that. I would say getting started, chirofunnelsecrets.com. You can register for a webinar. It's like I said, it's going to be going away here pretty soon. We got some new stuff that's going to be coming out, so we're going to kind of be archiving that, so to speak. I don't know if that's the right way of putting it, but
it sounds fancy, so use that term.
Yeah, there you go. And then for docs who want a little bit more in-depth training, who want maybe more hand-holding in the process, we have literally just launched our first ever, we're calling it our Chiro Funnel Map, which stands for Massive Action Plan Weekend. and it's going to be a live event here in Meridian, Idaho. It's literally right across the parking lot from my clinic. We have what we call our Black Ops site. It's basically a consulting headquarters / event room, and it's really awesome. We've been getting it all prepped and ready, and we're keeping it extremely limited intentionally. We're only having 10 docs come because it's going to be a very intimate process where docs are going to get a lot of one-on-one time. And we've already, it's been 24 hours since the official launch, and we've already got 4 spots taken. So we've only got 6 left, and it's going really, really quick.
So talk to us real quick about the transformation. I show up in Meridian on a Thursday night?
Thursday night, yeah. We start first thing Friday, and basically what we do Friday, the first part is going to be teaching effective funnel strategy. So kind of from a mile up, this is what a good funnel looks like. This is what you need to do. And all the while, we're teaching you ClickFunnels. We're teaching you how to use the software so you feel comfortable.
And then when I leave on Saturday night or Sunday morning, I fly back home, and on the plane ride, I realize I have what?
So yeah, basically then the second half of that day is giving you a funnel. We're going to walk you through, you'll build it. And then Saturday, we're going to teach you video strategy for all the rest of your funnel. So when you leave, you'll literally leave with a fully functional funnel that you can start getting new patients with. So the idea is it's an investment for the program. It's not cheap. It's not going to be some cheap experience, but you'll be able to, a handful of new patients that you can guaranteed get from implementing this funnel and other funnels that we teach you.
And I don't need any previous ClickFunnels experience. I don't need to know how to install a website. I don't need to know anything about anything. I can just walk in as a chiropractor and leave with operating funnels.
The only qualification that we have is you need to be willing to implement and execute. If you're lazy, this won't be for you. If docs are ambitious and they're excited and they're ready to go to work and have fun, that's who we're looking for. And
that's awesome. I think too, when you talk about the price, a lot of people are like, oh, it's expensive. Like, hold on. We're saying that in 2 days, you're going to accomplish something that won't sit partially done on your virtual shelf for 3 months. And so think in those 3 months, the number of people, the amount of business that will increase, the number of people whose lives you can affect, or let me flip it around, the number of hours you can take off 3 months from now because you invested that weekend is astronomically higher. So
absolutely.
I don't know what the cost is, but it's probably not enough because you're such a nice guy. You're saving everybody in the profession, and I appreciate it, Chad. Hey, listen, I know you got a busy practice to get back to, and I don't want to waste any time. So how can people get a hold of you? You said ChiroFunnelSecrets.com?
ChiroFunnelSecrets.com. And then if they want to check out the event, go to ChiroFunnels.com/MAP And that'll basically give a lot more in-depth explanation as to what the event is. If they're interested and want to proceed forward, they can apply for the event. I would, again, urgency and scarcity, total transparency, it is going to fill up fast. So if docs are serious about it and they want in, they'll need to apply pretty quickly because honestly, spots will be filled really, really quick here.
Fantastic. Well, listen, guys, if you want to maximize your license, you got to do something. And remember, you already have a funnel in place. So is it really the one that's serving you the best? If it's not, Chad can help you out with that with his different array of products. And if you are somebody interested in adding a gym to your clinic, then please give us a call and set up a consultation call so we can get you maximizing your license and doubling your profit without working more hours. Chad, I want to say thank you very much for taking the time today. And
thank you, my friend.
Yeah, enjoy the holiday season. It's coming upon us quickly, right?
Yeah, it is.
Fantastic. All right. Well, this is Dr. Josh for Dr. Chad Woolner. And go out there and save everybody just like Chad is. All right. Thanks, Chad.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for listening to Clinic Gym Radio. If you're ready to double your profit without working longer hours, please visit clinicgymhybrid.com and find out how easy it is to get started on your path to freedom. That's clinicgymhybrid.com.